So melatonin, yes, it is a hormone of darkness, but that's only 5% of one type of melatonin's role. So upon sensing darkness, meaning we're wearing our blue blockers, or we're outside camping and the only light source is campfire, or it's completely dark, right? Upon sensing darkness, which is no blue light in our environment, the pineal gland starts to make melatonin. And that melatonin will build up to a certain extent, and that certain extent creates what's called a sleep pressure, or a pressure to ultimately fall asleep. But once we fall asleep, melatonin organizes a circadian symphony of repair hormones, including things like human growth hormone, programs that run pathways called autophagy and apoptosis. Autophagy clears out damaged cells and damaged parts of our cells.
Welcome down the rabbit hole. This is where we're talking sports, health, fitness, biohacking, longevity, and a whole lot more. I'm your host, John Fitzgerald. Let's get to the action.
Carrie Bennett is a quantum clinician that practices out of Kalamazoo, Michigan. And she's going to talk to us about non-native EMFs and how they interact with our mitochondria, as well as the light signals that you get from the sun or from your phone or from your computer, and how that could disrupt, well, everything in your body. So let's dive in, because she's got a lot to say. I still have a lot of questions, so we're going to have to do a two-parter. But part one, Carrie B. Wellness. Let's go.
We're talking about circadian rhythm and circadian biology, and somebody's thinking about coming in to see you. What is the protocol look like, and what kind of things are you looking out for?
Yeah, let's jump into it, John. That's a great question. Okay,
We're
so
there.
number one, thanks for having me. I love being able to share this information. So first and foremost, when I tell people that they've got to have a strong circadian rhythm, I oftentimes get a blank stare, right? Because people don't understand how they know what a circadian rhythm is, kind of. It's like, okay, yeah, there's the cycle of day, the cycle of night, and that repeats, day in and day out. And so they understand that exists, but they don't understand how it applies to their health. And what I let them know is that we have a clock in our brain, right? And this clock in our brain is designed to tell time. And it tells time based on a certain light and changing light, and we can go into the details on that. And that clock in the brain literally has a direct communication pathway to every gene, every protein, every organ, every cell. And the cells and the organs and the hormones and the gene expression, the DNA, all of it wants to have optimum timing. I liken it to an airport where there's hundreds of landings and takeoffs all day long, and different runways and different weather patterns, but not having an air traffic control tower. So that would be utter chaos at that airport if you weren't able to have some master system directing where and when everything happens. And so that's the same with our body. And these days, we are in what I call an epidemic of circadian rhythm dysfunction, meaning we don't have accurate circadian signaling, meaning our hormones are firing at the wrong times. Our energy is being produced at the wrong times. Our inflammation can't get cleared up because of that. We can't heal our gut lining because of that. Not to mention the basics of, we have a lot of insomnia, anxiety, and depression, all of which are also tied to circadian rhythm dysfunction. And so I tell people it's important because literally our brain's perception of time, and that timing being an accurate circadian rhythm with our natural light environment, literally runs the show and can optimize every system in the body.
Yes. Yes. So what is it that your typical client comes from? Are they trying to heal like a thyroid issue their doctor said they have? Is it insomnia? Are they just exhausted? What kind of stories are you hearing? All of it?
Yeah,
okay.
It's all of it. So, these days now I get really complex cases where it's quote unquote not just one thing. It's histamine, MCAS, plus an autoimmune thyroid condition, plus, SIBO or just massive digestive inflammation, plus anxiety, plus depression, right? Like that's a very typical symptom profile that I'll see. And the cool thing about it is that when you lay the foundation of having a healthy light environment, I don't have to physically go in and say, here is your support nutrients for thyroid. Here is your support nutrients for your immune system. Here's your support nutrients for your gut. And instead, we lay the light foundation and we use light to say, oh, okay, it's nighttime. Now we repair the gut lining. Oh, okay, we know the time of day. Our gut microbiome changes based on the time of day or night. Oh, okay, thyroid gland, I have the energy now in the mitochondria to be able to heal you. Same thing with the MCAT. I mean, it all links together. And so, yes, I'm not saying that light is going to be the ultimate panacea, although I have had people who have been on disability for years use light and within 3 days to 3 weeks completely get off of disability for things like chronic fatigue, ME, CFS, fibromyalgia based type symptoms. So it's not unheard of for this to be life changing in a short period of time. But let's say we've got a very complex case. I lay the foundation of light so at least the body knows when to make energy, when to fire certain hormones, and when to sleep and repair. And we do that for, let's say, 2 to 3 months, and symptoms start to go down drastically. Now, these people still have symptoms. I use a questionnaire called the Nutritional Assessment Questionnaire, right? Where it's like 300 questions. So these people still have a heavy symptom burden, but we can literally drop their symptom burden by 50 to 100 points just by using light, as opposed to having to address each system individually.
That is pretty wild, considering you're mostly focused, at least in the social media world, on the water aspect of the light water magnetism continuum, if you will, which I've studied a lot of light. I got 2 different red lights here that we're playing with in our clinic. I don't do any like UV exposure or blue light exposure. Are you on board with that? Because Ben Greenfield was talking about using like PEMF and blue light to wake up. And I just don't subscribe to the game.
Yeah.
But I don't know where you're at.
No, listen, I don't subscribe to it either because, okay, so let's put it this way. Can having a intense blue light in your eyes first thing in the morning, can it provide you with a stimulus to wake up? Absolutely, it can.
Yeah.
Can it actually, though, help your brain tell accurate time? 100% no. Because when we get blue light from the sun, it's there from sunrise till sunset, but it's ever changing. So I tell my clients the best thing you can do is go outside in the morning, naked eyes. No glasses, no sunglasses, no contacts, if safe, and especially no sunglasses. And when you do that, your eyes will start to see that the blue light is increasing, the brightness from the sun is increasing, and it doesn't have to be a sunny day, right? Because we live in Michigan, John. It's not always sunny, right?
Nah.
It's cloudy a huge portion of the year, and you can still get the benefits. When it's cloudy, snowy, rainy, it doesn't matter. And so Ben is half right? You absolutely can. But is it ideal? No. You cannot biohack nature. And nature is free and it's best. And if you can do it with nature, you're going to get multiple benefits besides just a shock to the brain that's going to provide a cortisol surge and a dopamine hit to wake you up. You'll get that naturally in a beneficial way outside, plus a plethora of other benefits because you're syncing your circadian signal.
Yes. And I'm glad, because if you were going to tell me the opposite, I was going to be so upset that I've been wrong for so long.
We're ending the interview now.
We're done. No way. Not listening. The idea of like the quick fix, right? Of I'm going to wake up in the morning and I'm going to flip on my phone. A terrible habit, but B, that's the blue light you don't need. So you don't really need a device for it. It's already happening by the fact that
it's not working for people.
Yeah, it's the way that you live your life is what I tell my clients all the time. Like, what do I have to change? Almost every little habit that you have, but it's not going to change your life. It will just change your life. And with that, what is your? I watched or read through your protocol, but where do you normally start with them? Do you just like the blue light blocking glasses or the screen protector that I have on my screens right now? Is that where you start, or is it your sleep cave?
Yeah. That's a great question. So the practical aspect of this, like, how do we implement this? Like, what? And I get 2 types of clients, right? I get the clients who are like type A, tell me everything, I want to implement it today. And I get the clients who are have a lot of nervous system dysregulation and very overwhelmed. So let me start with that group, because I have just just a small handful of things that I recommend there to start with, and then we can layer in the nuances of like red light therapy and things like that. But I say, if you wake up before sunrise, you want to block the artificial light using orange tone blue blockers and have dimmer lighting throughout the house. I'm not talking about be unsafe, but I have small little incandescent bulbs, which we can get again, right? I have small little incandescent bulbs on table lamps basically throughout the house. And so those lower lamps and the dimmer lighting mimics campfire. And then the blue blockers will block any aggressive brightness or any potential blue light for entering my eyes. And so I'll have those on. Then I tell my clients at sunrise if possible, but do not let perfect be the enemy of good, because if it's 5 minutes after sunrise, you're still gonna know, your brain can sync up that it's the blue light is here, the brightness, it can sync all of the signals up that it needs. So I'll say as close to sunrise as you can handle, go outside and spend 3 minutes out there if possible. More is better, right? More is absolutely better, but 3 minutes consistently is better than 3 minutes. 3 minutes consistently. Listen to this. Would you rather have a client go outside for 3 minutes every morning at or near sunrise, or spend 30 minutes outside on a Saturday morning and then the rest of the week just kind of do their own thing because they can't do it perfectly, right?
I mean, I'm on team 3 minutes for sure.
100%.
I'd love for them to just get up at sunrise first. That's
right. Yeah,
I feel like a lot of people are really missing that.
They are. And if you wake up after sunrise, I'm not gonna force, like, I really don't force people, because a lot of people have these flipped sleep cycles. I'm not gonna force you to wake up at sunrise, but I am gonna say as soon as you wake up, if the sun has risen, you go outside. Or if it's even dawn and it's light enough for you to safely be outside, go outside. Now there's street lights, yes, but those are actually going to be way dimmer than had you woken up and looked at your phone first thing in the morning, or flipped on a bunch of lights in your bathroom and in your kitchen, right? So I want people to get outside as soon as possible. And I want them to be outside, especially after the sun has risen, for that 3 minute window of time or more. There's times of the year, I got 3 kids, right? There's times of the year that I literally have my orange tone blue blockers on until I'm driving in the car and the sun is rising on the way to school. And we got our windows cracked or the sunroof open, and I'll yell sunrise eyes to the kids, and we'll roll all the windows down and we'll face east at this traffic light that we always get stopped at on the way to school, So yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect to work. And the more consistently you do it, the human body is a beautifully intelligent creation, right? We'll be able to then have what's called circadian predictability. So these little frequent check-ins with light, which is another recommendation. I've got clients, I say, go outside and get little natural light breaks all day long. It can be 30 seconds, it can be 3 minutes, but you're building the circadian predictability of the brain being able to say, okay, it's been, 3 hours since Carrie's been outside, so I think it's this time of day, and then they're like, oh, yep, it is, right? So, and then at night, after sunset, and when it gets dark, you put your orange tone blue blockers on again. That signals darkness to the brain. The brain can make lots of melatonin to not only put you to sleep, but also to repair your body when you are asleep. And then you wake up and you repeat that sequence.
Yeah, you just recently had a post about melatonin last Friday or something. I don't know. You wrote it, I think a lot of people think of it as only the sleep thing. Like, it just does that one thing. But when I tell them all the things, they're like, go ahead and source it. And I usually point to you. I'm like, well, here's this. And then you can follow that paper trail all the way back to whoever you want. But go ahead and just back me up on this. Give me the basics of what your melatonin production should do on a healthy body.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the interesting thing about, like, quote unquote, show me your source these days. I want people to realize that just because something has a scientific research article behind it doesn't mean it's 100% true. Science can be bought and paid for these days, right? So
often.
We have to be often, right? The peer review process has really gone downhill according to all of my PhD friends. So it's really I understand that science is like the new language of like truth and religion and all that jazz. I get it, but I want people to also have some common sense and also do your own research, because it's really easy these days to go onto a search engine, put the words melatonin and gut health, or melatonin microbiome, or melatonin autoimmunity, and you'll see a host of different research articles that have published research articles, peer reviewed. Again, take that with a grain of salt, but go into them.
Always.
And then look, and you can start to like kind of just see this for yourself. I don't want to be your guru. I want to maybe stimulate something in you to say, oh, that's interesting, I haven't heard that before, let me look into it more on my own. But that being said, let's see if we can kind of just,
with that being said, while you are the guru, here we are.
Let's just try.
I don't want to be, but I'm here now.
Well, I just love sharing this stuff, right? So, so let's pique people's interest with this, right? So melatonin, yes, it is a hormone of darkness, but that's only 5% of one type of melatonin's role. So upon sensing darkness, meaning we're wearing our blue blockers, or we're outside camping and the only light source is campfire, or it's completely dark, right? Upon sensing darkness, which is no blue light in our environment, the pineal gland starts to make melatonin. And that melatonin will build up to a certain extent, and that certain extent creates what's called a sleep pressure, or a pressure to ultimately fall asleep. But once we fall asleep, melatonin organizes a circadian symphony of repair hormones, including things like human growth hormone, programs that run pathways called autophagy and apoptosis. Autophagy clears out damaged cells and damaged parts of our cells. Apoptosis completely eliminates cells that are causing tissue dysfunction, basically cancerous cells that are growing unchecked. Melatonin also then can signal things to the microbiome. It can signal repair pathways in the gut. So melatonin, yes, it helps us to fall asleep, but beyond that, at night, it helps us to run rest and repair programs. But we're actually designed to make melatonin during the day. And it's not going to be produced by our pineal gland. Melatonin for us that stays inside of our cells. And that mitochondrial melatonin acts as a master antioxidant inside of the cell, naturally cleaning up metabolic damage. Because as we're more active during the day, our metabolism has to function at a higher rate than it does when we're sleeping. And as it naturally functions at a higher rate, we're going to produce more what are called reactive oxygen species, which we could also call inflammation. So perfect, our mitochondria are making energy for us, and they're also going to generate some of this inflammation, but at the same time, they can make the melatonin that can clean up the inflammation to keep the cell in its healthiest state. Now, the kicker here, though, is that in order for mitochondria to be optimum producers of melatonin, they need access to near infrared light, which is a wavelength range of light that we can't physically see with our eyes. It's outside of the visible spectrum, just outside of the red portion that we can see. But sunlight contains at least 40 to 50% of its light spectrum in the infrared spectrum, which is a huge spectrum. So we absolutely have a ton of near infrared exposure as well. And so anytime we would have been outside from dawn till dusk, we'd be bathing in near infrared. And we don't just have to be in the sun, in direct sunlight to receive it. We'd be getting it from whenever near infrared will bounce off of greenery, from things like leaves and grass and bushes and plants. And so we'd, even in the shade, be bathing in massive amounts of infrared. And so that infrared then penetrates deeply into the body and is able to stimulate. It's a light signal to stimulate the mitochondria to make melatonin as a natural cellular antioxidant source all day. But you know this, right? Modern window glass is going to block a ton of that near infrared. Modern light bulbs have completely omitted it, right? LEDs, fluorescent lights completely omit it. So we're near infrared deficient these days. We're melatonin deficient. We lack darkness, we lack near infrared light. Our bodies are just not making melatonin.
You know, it's interesting. I've been studying this and following along for a long time, and I never really, even though I understand color theory, I never even thought about the reflection off of the grass and the leaves, you know? Like,
yeah, you can actually
I mean, I understood, like, it doesn't matter if there's clouds, but
you can actually do near infrared photography. If you do near infrared photography in a green, with it, like, on greenery, on leaves, it's going to look mostly white because of all that near infrared. It's going to be reflecting, and so it's going to be coming back to the camera. It's fascinating. But yeah, you know, that the main research that I want to highlight that is with when Russell Reiter, main melatonin researcher, paired up with Scott Zimmerman, who's an optics researcher. And they started to recognize the different wavelengths of light to stimulate this cellular melatonin production.
Yeah, I wrote those two names down. Two brilliant people, obviously. I don't know Russell's work, so I'm going into that like in about an hour.
Yeah.
You mentioned the thing that I've been talking about the most, and it's kind of like what most people are getting brought into this is the mitochondria. So everyone thought it was the powerhouse of the cell. That's what you and I were taught. You know, I graduated in '08. You look like you're roughly my age. Maybe you're aging better than I am.
Yeah, about 8 years younger.
Cool,
but
yeah. Okay, yeah. All right. So
We'll say
aging
it's
well,
similar.
still look great. Yeah, we're under 50,
There you
and I'm sure they said the same thing to you. It's like, that's
Yes.
the powerhouse of the cell.
Yes.
And 20 years went by before I figured out, A, how it worked, or even wondered how it worked. And it's driven by the thing we're talking about.
Light and water.
So I want you to go into, if you could please, the reaction to light and the reaction, I guess, the reciprocated reaction that the water around the cell happens to kind of dance with.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're saying here, John, right, is that what I want to say is, yes, mitochondria are actually powerhouses of the cell, but it's not because they make ATP. It's because they make water. And we're going to talk extensively about why that water is energy, is a key, is absolutely essential for cellular health. But first and foremost, what's interesting, and I've had a couple of conversations with Jerry Pollack about this. Gerald Pollack he wrote The Fourth Phase of Water, who I really have based so many clinical recommendations on. Yeah, he's really one of my research heroes. And Jerry, he learned about my passion for mitochondria and mitochondrial water production, and he came up to me after a talk and he said, have you ever found any research that actually indicates that ATP has a high energy phosphate bond that it can donate to reactions? And so I said no, and this is based on the work of Gilbert Ling and many other people as well, but it's swept under the rug because it's an inconvenient truth for most research now. But that there is actually research that is disproving that ATP has a high energy bond and that it cannot participate in reactions in the way we think it does by donating energy in the reaction. It does something that plays a prominent role. We can talk about that in a second. But no, so that's why it's like, okay, yes, mitochondria, they make ATP, but they make water, the forgotten byproduct of mitochondrial energy production. And so Jerry has discovered that when water, any water, but specifically water inside of a cell, when it contacts what's called a hydrophilic, which is just a fancy word for water-loving surface, and all biological surfaces, or the vast majority of biological surfaces, from membranes to the cytoskeleton to proteins, DNA, right? The cell is packed with all of these molecules, and they're water-loving surfaces. And anytime water contacts these water-loving surfaces, it actually structures itself. It reorganizes itself into a gel-like phase. Hence why Jerry calls it the fourth phase of water. Because again, let's go back to our high school, right? Or maybe undergrad, whatever, right? When we were taught that water exists in three phases: liquid, solid, and gas. Well, absolutely it does. I'm not denying that. But in between the liquid and the solid phase is a gel-like phase. And it's called the liquid crystalline state of water. Because the water molecules, if you've ever seen people, you can Google this, right? Say, how do water molecules line up in a snowflake, right? Or in ice. And you'll see that they organize themselves into rigid hexagons, repeating patterns of rigid hexagons with, let's say oxygen at the vertices and hydrogen in between these hexagons. And so that's a very well-known, well-established scientific fact. Now, what you have then is water in its liquid state. The water molecules, they don't have a lot of organization. There's a lot of H2O, and I for people watching this on video, it's like I always put my fingers together, and at the top of my fingers is an oxygen molecule, and my fingers themselves represent hydrogen. And these water molecules are bonding with other water molecules, but it's random, right? There's a lot of movement, a lot of flexibility. There's not a lot of form or structure to it. What Jerry found was that when this water is next to these biological surfaces, the water gets a structure again, very much like ice. He hypothesized it could be even in hexagonal rings, but in a more fluid version of hexagonal rings. But regardless of what the actual structure is, it changes the properties of water. It turns it into that viscous gel-like state. And when it's in that gel-like state, it behaves so differently than typical water that's liquid water. And one of the main things, John, that I think we can talk about when it comes to this conversation of cellular energy is that water in that fourth phase is negatively charged. whereas water in a glass is neutral. You add up all the protons and electrons, they cancel each other out. But the water, in order to form this structured arrangement in its fourth phase, it has to kick out a positive charge. And so now you've got this essentially this structured lattice of water that's negatively charged. Well, you think about, okay, again, for forever, science has known for forever that a healthy cell requires charge. It's been called pH, it's been called voltage, right? Membrane potential. It absolutely needs it. But because water was never studied in scientific research with, it's just, it's just there, it's an inert substance, it's not really participating or doing much. So it's been largely ignored. But what we now know is that, okay, so maybe the charge of the cell isn't because we have these sodium potassium pumps pumping ions in and out. Maybe it's simply because the water inherently has a charge when it's in its fourth phase. And maybe a healthy cell is a cell that's full of this fourth phase water, and maybe a cell that's unhealthy is drained of this fourth phase water. And that's been my clinical hypothesis for a decade now. And I work with clients to say, okay, how do I optimize your light environment? And how do I maintain this fourth phase of water called EZ water inside of your cells?
Right.
And
So-
there's a dozen or more things that we can do, and it proves to be very beneficial for client health.
So you're hoping that, like, if we were to take an electron microscope and look, that you would see a larger EZ zone or a smaller EZ zone?
Bigger. It'd be full. The cell would be mostly in a gel-like state, which confuses people because they're like, well, then how can things move? Well, number one, the gel-like state gives some benefits, right? The protein, when in a gel-like state, the proteins are elongated, and elongated proteins are in their ready position to do work. So as soon as they get the signal, there's something called a phase transition in the water. The water doesn't just stay in its gelled state. When the correct signal comes to either proteins in the cell or stuff around the outside of the cell, or things need to get into the cell or out of the cell, a phase transition happens, and the water goes from the gelled-like state around the protein back to its liquid state, and the protein folds. And that folding of the protein is the work that the protein does. And then the protein unfolds and regels the water. And that's the role of ATP. We need adequate ATP because ATP unfolds the protein so it can return back to its gelled state or elongated state with gelled water around it.
That actually makes way more sense than the way I try and explain it. So I'm a bookmark that one. So answer my own question. It's really, I know the answer, but I love hearing somebody else say it other than me. What happens when you drink a charged water? Let's call it an alkaline bottle of water that you bought from the airport.
Yeah, it depends, right? Like, so not all water is created equal, but let's say you're drinking spring water. Can we go with like a high quality spring water?
I prefer that. Yeah, let's go with that.
A high quality spring water is slightly alkaline. It's basically got Earth's energies in it, without getting, we can get as woo as you want on that, John. But the alkaline water, on an empty stomach, water is absorbed within 5 minutes. Within 5 minutes, it goes directly into the bloodstream. If our blood volume or our bloodstream is hydrated enough, then our capillaries become leaky. So the capillaries are basically the blood, where the blood interfaces with our cells. So you've got these bigger arteries that branch into smaller and smaller little rivers until you get these little capillaries. But the capillaries will only leak water and hydration out and kind of bathe the cells if the blood volume stays hydrated. And these days, I think we're in this persistent state of dehydration in our blood volume. And when one of the main symptoms that happens, and it's not one symptom, there's a huge plethora of symptoms, but we now know that when the blood volume is dehydrated, our body is way more aggressive at histamine release. Because histamine in the body doesn't just act in response to, say, an allergen. It is what's called a drought management system. And so it actually it causes the capillaries to tighten up and say, uh-oh, blood volume's getting low. We must maintain blood hydration at all costs. Let's make sure we're still bathing the brain and the vital organs with enough hydration, but let's shut off the hydration to other cells that are less important for the body. And so if the blood volume is hydrated, it's great because then we're going to allow that water to go out of the cells and bathe what's called the interstitial fluid. And that interstitial fluid surrounds the cell, and it's where our immune system and our lymphatic system lives. And so if we have adequate, we hear a lot about clients having stagnant lymphatic flow. It's not just because of being inactive. It's because we're chronically dehydrated and we're not allowing the fluid from the blood, the water from the blood, to bathe that interstitial space. If it's hydrated, if we have hydrated interstitial fluid, also called extracellular matrix, if that's hydrated, then some of that water can get into the cell, finally. That's the last destination where it then will come into contact with these biological surfaces and will structure itself into this fourth phase. But the vast majority, and this is what the talk that I gave at Jerry's water conference, and it's that I believe, my hypothesis is that the vast majority of this water inside of the cell is made by our mitochondria. And that's mitochondrial water production is what truly hydrates the interior of the cell and allows the cell to maintain this fourth phase of water.
Brilliantly put. Brilliantly put. So
Thanks, John.
mostly, like, it's all crap because of what is going on inside of our body. You can say it unless you have like a water sponsor.
No,
But
I'm
if
not
you're-
sponsored by anyone. I have recommendations, but I don't have exclusive recommendations just because I do want to make sure that I remain neutral when it comes to being able to answer questions honestly.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. Like, I live out in the country. I have a well. I don't let people mess with my water unless it's me. But it's just, working in Troy and Birmingham, people are like, oh yeah, I bought this water. It's positively charged. It's like, well, you're cute. It's like,
I know.
I don't know how to shut you down without like letting you down. Not easy. It's going to be rough, but you wasted your time and your money. But it is important that you keep your body healthy, and I would love them to just look in the right areas, like you said.
Yeah.
It's in nature.
Exactly.
It's in nature.
I mean, number one, yeah, I want people to be aware that drinking adequate water is important because a lot of people don't realize it. So step one is, okay, they're going to bring me a less than ideal bottle of water that they're showing me that they've been drinking. Well, number one, the first thing that I actually do is say, well, how much of that are you drinking and when are you drinking it? And I help them maybe add minerals in to help their body better hydrate with that water. And I say that might not be the ideal water, but if that's what you have access to right now, let's work with it. And then we take other steps. So ultimately, when a client is done, they're drinking water that is free of all toxins. It has been structured or vortexed or both, and there's ways to do that. And it's been mineralized with appropriate minerals that the body wants to absorb. Because the blood, yes, we drink pure water, but think about this. There's no pure water in our bodies anywhere. Our blood is salty. Our sweat is salty. Our tears are salty. Our cerebrospinal fluid is salty. And it's not just full of NaCl table salt. It's full of the ocean blend of minerals. And so I oftentimes have my clients make what's called Soleil water, which is like turning water, like make a really salty, sea salt rich water solution and adding drops of that to their water. Because with drinking water, we need to drink minerals. I've had countless clients say, oh, I've been drinking this distilled water or this reverse osmosis water, and now I'm peeing every 30 minutes. It's because I'm like, you're flushing minerals. You need to add minerals back to that water in order for your body to say, oh, now I want to hold it and make it part of my blood, part of my cerebrospinal fluid, part of my lymphatic fluid, those types of things.
Yeah, and you have a quote, and I wrote it down. You're a battery made of water that's charged through light. And if anybody doesn't know right now, our bodies are electrical signals. And if you don't know, water without minerals doesn't transport electrical signal at all.
Nope.
It doesn't help.
Nope.
So when you're doing the hierarchy of health and you're looking at how to attack something that's attacking the body, obviously it's not diet and it's not exercise. If I was going to look at one thing, would you say look at mitochondrial health and go that way? Would you say look at your water health and go that way? I mean, it's all interconnected.
It's all interconnected. Yeah, like it really all.
How do you turn them into the right? How do I steer them in the right path?
So you say, hey, because exercise is important. Don't get me wrong, movement is important, nutrition is important. I don't want people eating garbage. It is important, but it's not where I start, especially because, John, by the time people come to me, they've already gone down the diet and exercise rabbit hole, and they're eating organic and grass-fed, and and so there's not a lot initially for me to tweak when it comes to food. And people get too myopic about things like oxalates or carnivore versus vegan versus it gets too myopic, and there's too much charged energy about it. So I'd rather address things from a more unique perspective, and I always start with light. Light is the foundation.
Light.
Because if you get adequate light signaling, your mitochondria actually make water at a better rate. Mitochondria need light to make that water. So that's where light starts to stimulate the water production. That light also, as you know, Jerry found that if exclusion zone water starts to drain, you can apply infrared light and it'll charge that structured water. It'll restructure the water. Mm-hmm. And so again, if I get people outside in the morning and they're bathing in infrared, they're already starting to work on their water in their bodies without even realizing it. They'll take little sun breaks throughout the day. They'll start to get sun directly on their skin. All those things will help that water battery recharge. And so I start with light. And then we go to water, and then there's the nuances of other things we can support with for mitochondrial health, which is things like red light therapy, molecular hydrogen, non-native EMFs is a huge one that's dehydrating people. And so there's then a more, let's say, refined checklist of things. But the foundation is the light. The light helps people with the water. I get them hydrated and mineralized, and then we kind of move on.
I love that, because my next question is, if they don't know how would you explain like protecting your mitochondria? What are the top 3, top 5? Like, how do you go about giving them a checklist?
Yeah. So I there's a lot of education oftentimes on what mitochondria are. And so mitochondria are these little intracellular organelles, right? So they're these little entities inside of our cells that make water and ATP. But they're very susceptible to chaotic information and toxins. And so what I mean by that is there's things like glyphosate, heavy metals, microplastics. So I help people kind of reduce their toxin exposure. Well, again, a lot of these people have already gone down that rabbit hole extensively, because I want to make sure we're not actively poisoning our mitochondria, if at all possible. Yeah. Then I talk about the chaotic information that is most harmful to mitochondria is artificial blue light that will directly inhibit mitochondrial water production. And there is research, that's Glenn Jeffries' research, really great research going on about showing why our modern lighting environment is really detrimental. So we've got the blue light from screens, from bulbs, harming the mitochondria and their water production, and we've got non-native EMFs that create mitochondrial harm as well. And that's where I go through a little stepwise process, because people don't want to think that their cell phone is harming their mitochondria, or their Apple Watch or their AirPods or anything like that. But I do gently let them know that those are putting out basically microwave radiation, and that radiation is a toxin to your mitochondria.
Fries your body, it dries it out.
It dries your body out. The same reason why you don't cook meat in a microwave, because that microwave radiation dries that meat out. It's doing it obviously it's not happening in a 2-minute window of time as aggressively as the microwave would, but gradually over time, we can't help but be bathing our bodies in non-native EMFs simply because of what's happening in our societal construct of EMF exposure, from cell phone towers to smart homes to satellites, right? So the EMFs are increasing. I want people to control what they can control. I would prefer it if you don't wear a smartwatch. I would prefer it if you never use AirPods again and use wired headphones instead. I would prefer it if your phone was on airplane mode. I want you to hardwire your workstation whenever possible. I want you to turn off your Wi-Fi or hardwire your home if possible. I have had clients whose children have had autoimmune conditions, and children are especially susceptible to non-native EMFs.
That's a direct link to an ill mitochondria. All autoimmune
exactly.
problems are derived from that.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so when I would ask them questions about what their home is like, there was smart things in every room, from Alexas or whatever the speakers are called, to smart thermostat switches and smart fans. It's like smart, but that's a lot of radiation that are bombarding those mitochondria, and then they're not able to produce the energy to clean up this inflammatory cascade that gets initiated with these autoimmune conditions. And so by cleaning up the non-native EMFs, it can go a long way. It didn't 100% reverse that condition. We had to do other things to reverse them, but it went a long way towards halting the progress, improving sleep, starting to reverse symptomatology because of how responsive our mitochondria are to either a calm environment that doesn't have non-native EMFs versus an environment that's really full of them. That's a very chaotic environment for the body.
And you can see like the direct links of illness going up as soon as basically, we created electricity that we can harness. It is the problem. One thing that I've been telling my people is like get Faraday cages for your phones or get a Faraday blanket over your bed, because turning off your Wi-Fi seems almost obnoxious and ridiculous. Like, why would I do that? Airplane mode, what if someone calls me?
I know. So
whoever you are, you're not that important anyway. Trust me, it can wait. But I like the actionables that you were saying is like, basically you're saying you baby step them. And you're hand holding them a little bit.
And there are some clients that I have that literally, if they turned off their Wi-Fi at night, it's like their smart home would crash, right? Like it's a hard no. So believe it or not, John, and this, I got to come back for an entirely different conversation on this topic. But I have looked extensively into harmonizing non-native EMFs and what you can do to transform the wave.
Yeah, like I was going to ask about those the necklaces and like the sacred geometry things. I don't even know what they are really. It looks like reverse antenna, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, buyer beware, because I could ultimately tell you that I just put harmonizing into this business card, and it wouldn't do anything because it obviously doesn't have that energy. But there are companies that have figured out and have. I would say the company with the longest history in harmonizing non-native EMFs is Biogeometry. Ibrahim Karim is an Egyptian architect who realized that shape can change how the EMF waves, how they behave. He's literally harmonized whole cities. So this was just 3G, but he was called to a city in Switzerland when they decided to put 3G towers into their church bell towers and things like that. And all of a sudden, the city saw a huge uptick in migraine headaches, remittances to like basically violent behavior, mental health challenges, and they're like, literally the animal species started to disappear, right? So literally someone obviously was a good observer and was just like, okay, those went in, and now we have all of these issues. He went into that city and used his biogeometry techniques to harmonize, not remove or shield, but to harmonize the energy that's being emitted from these EMF producing antenna, and you get complete remediation of all symptoms and all issues. Wildlife started to come back. So there is a way to do it, and he's been doing it for 50 years, but buyer beware.
That's a long time.
Yep.
So, okay, so we're protecting our mitochondria, we're avoiding our EMF, thank God, and we're hopefully sleeping a little bit better. We're turning off our alarm clocks, we're turning them away, getting our sleep cave going. And then what's our next step?
Okay, so we haven't even talked about this yet, but I really love people to earth and ground, to get into nature, or to start to recognize nature where they live. So it's such a fascinating experiment to have clients go outside. And it's like, okay, go outside. Like, I'll even do this when I'm on a call. Be like, okay, go outside right now and tell me, what do you hear and what do you see? And at first, people will say things like car horns, lawnmower, honk, right, air conditioner, fan. They'll start, and then I'll say, okay, now I want you to go outside, and I want you to go out and see something green, look at a cloud, talk to me about your observations with that. And so they'll go outside and they'll maybe sky gaze or stare at some trees, and they'll be like, bird song, the cicadas, the clouds, the wind, right? And so you could be in the exact same environment, but view it in two different ways, depending on where you put your focus. And I want my clients, when they do that, when they earth and ground themselves and they apply more of a focus towards nature, massive changes happen in their brainwave state, their breath rate, and their heart rate rhythm. So we're designed to be synced up to what's called the Schumann resonance, which is this perpetual beat that's happening outside if we tune into it. And one of the best ways that has been shown for us to tune into it is to earth ourselves or touch bare skin to the earth. When that happens, our brain waves go from this high beta, high stress, hyper aroused state into alpha. And that alpha plus just a little, that alpha state, that is a calm, creative brain. That is what I call our human default state. How many of us, though, are in that state as a default these days? We're not taught.
The fact that it's default, I wouldn't imagine, because no one's there. We're all high-stress individuals.
Exactly. And so by doing that, by tapping into that Schumann resonance, you see brain waves start to change. It's not that I'm in a coma, right? It's not that I'm just like in la-la land, but I'm calm and creative. And should I need logic, I can jump a harmonic. I can jump up to the next brainwave state, but I'm in low beta. I'm still super logical. I can still analytical, but I'm not up here. I'm not in this chaotic zone. And then when I'm in alpha, I can drop down into theta, which is the meditation, right? That's the meditative state. And so it's just a different way to help clients recognize how they can support things like their nervous system, their brain waves. When you organize your brain waves that way, your breath rate rhythm changes to about 6 cycles per minute. When that changes, you get heart rate variability improvements, drops in blood pressure, you name it. And so that's just another missing piece that it's easy to do, even in winter. I will have clients go outside and do it. There's just unique ways to do it. But it's important to recognize that something is so simple as earthing and being in touch with nature in our environment, but people just don't realize how profoundly that can impact health. Things work as polarities, right? Dualities, polarities. It's like, so yeah, absolutely we need that. I went to massage therapy school, right? So yeah, absolutely, yes, we need that yang energy from the sun, but we need the yin energy from Mother Earth to help to kind of bring us into this balanced polarity. So we need both of them. I have had clients who overly dominate the sun exposure without getting the earthing and that type of exposure, and that doesn't bring them into complete balance. Or people who earth a lot, but they wear sunglasses or they cover up or they fear the sun, they also don't come into that balance. And so both of them, it's just balanced, that brings the body into that centering vibration, that harmony, that
Right.
Homeostasis.
Yeah, hell yeah. So, quick question. If the body's making all these free electrons in the mitochondria, and people are focusing on their diet, and they're eating, and they're talking about, that is what we're talking about, jumping forward. We're just going to assume everyone knows what I'm talking about. We're eating electrons, but we also create our own. Is America fat because we eat way too much, realistically? or is America fat because we don't live in nature anymore?
Well, when we
I'm excluding you and I. We are fit. Just saying. I'm not saying you're fat. No, you're great. Keep doing great.
All good. When the body has to hoard energy, which is what it's doing when it stores body fat, it's either not efficient at taking energy from food and flowing it through the mitochondria, or it's not maintaining adequate charge in the cell as exclusion zone water, so it thinks it needs to hoard an alternative storage energy form. There's this whole concept of leptin signaling, which is a master hormone that helps our body to sense its energy stores. That can be off as well. When we're sedentary, we're not making electrons in our connective tissue that can help funnel as energy to the mitochondria. So again, it's like the body is, I think, through the lens of body fat storage, body fat is an electron dense source. The body is saying, okay, you're not giving me the correct electrons in the food, you're not giving me electrons from the earth, you're not giving me the charge from the sun to maintain that exclusion zone water, you're not moving as a means of producing charge in the body. We have no choice but to have these stores of body fat because we are charge deficient.
So it's like you're not making any money, so you can't spend any money. Got to hoard the money.
Hoard it.
Makes sense.
Yep, exactly.
That makes a lot of sense too.
Yep.
quick actionables, because I do want to take your entire day, but I understand that you're a busy person. The blue light blocking glasses. I don't have mine, but don't judge, only because I have my screen protectors on.
You're fine.
You came out with some that are pretty badass. I don't know if it was you, your husband, a team, collab, the interchangeable ones.
Yeah,
you know
sure.
Talking about?
Yeah, they're not. No, I just am a lucky beneficiary of having the company had sent them to me to try, and I fell in love with them. They're Viva Rays, and that's the master child of Rudy Nassif. He's the owner of that company. He and his sister Joy, just a beautiful company, and. So you've got basically the yellow. What I'm wearing is yellow, which is hard. Sometimes on the screen it comes off as orange, but I wear yellows during the day simply because I'm behind modern window glass. But if I had my red screen on, I wouldn't be able to see you. I could see nothing during the day, right?
Yeah.
I found that having the yellows it's mitigated a bit, but it's an unnatural blue environment for my eyes. And so having the yellows on takes the harshest of the blue light away and allows my brain to perceive a more natural light source. So yellows during the day, but they're not a must unless you stare at computers all day and you can't mitigate the screen, or you're in, right. I've had clients who are work in big box stores under garbage fluorescent lighting where they don't see the light of day except on their little breaks. I have them wear yellows. It can make a huge difference. The orange ones are the ones that so these 3-in-1s, the cool thing about them, right, is that it's magnetized, so you can put the orange ones on. Those orange ones are what you wear for bedtime, right? So that's between sunset and nightfall, where it truly is dark outside, you put them on. And they block any blue light from getting to your brain. So it's signaling to your brain that you're surrounded by campfire. No matter what the light source is, you're surrounded by campfire, and you can start to initiate the melatonin production and the sleep process. Now, this is oftentimes all that's needed for people is the oranges, because they put them on and within an hour and a half, they're tired. And their brain's like, yes, I'm ready to go to bed. But my night owls who have been falling asleep at around, let's say 1-2 o'clock in the morning, they oftentimes need red ones. Or let's say you work a job that you are not getting home at an ideal time, but you want to start to make melatonin as quickly as possible so you can fall asleep. The red ones will block all of the blue light, a majority of what's called the green wavelength range, which can, in some people, suppress melatonin production, and it dims the light. It's boring as all heck, too, to watch TV, so I'll have I've worked with people who come home and to wind down, they want to game. They want to game for an hour, And I'm like, sure, I'm not going to stop your gaming, but you'll do it with red glasses on. And they're just like, that's boring. I don't want to game anymore. I'm like,
everything looks the same. You shouldn't.
And then they get super tired and they just want to go to bed because you're going to start to make massive amounts of melatonin. And so then in the morning before sunrise, you put the orange ones back on and kind of go through the sequence we talked about.
I guess I really should have rushed you right into the kid thing as soon as you mentioned 3 kids. I didn't know that. Congratulations on all 3. It's not a competition. I have 1, but you're winning.
Well, I am competitive, John, so thank you.
Yeah, I would say, but maybe I'll go pop 2 more out. I don't know. It's not really up to me all the time. But I really would love to have that conversation about how we keep our kids safe. Mine wears her glasses, and she fights me on it for the first 15 minutes. And then she realizes she's not going to win because I'm dad. But that started when she was 4, and now at 9, she puts them on without a reminder.
Yeah, I would say no. Yeah, there's a stubborn window. There's I call it the stubbornness age in there. With my 3, I didn't know anything with my first. He's one of the reasons why I got into this field in the first place. But all I did, because I wasn't sure what I was doing, right? So all I would do 10, 12 years ago, almost 14 years ago, holy cow, I would just put my orange ones on at night by myself. My husband, my kid was usually asleep by then, but I would just do my thing. And it was probably about 5 years into it that my husband was just like, well, I want to try those too. You're getting good sleep. You're getting healthier. You're just reverse aging. And so then he puts them on no problem at night. Yeah. And then my oldest got old enough to start to stay up and wanting to watch sports and things like that with me and my husband at night. Yeah. And so he had no problem, right? And so now it's just a family thing. I've never forced anything upon anyone. I find when I force it, I'm going to get direct pushback, especially from certain children. But as I've modeled it, I think that's really allowed it to become normal, and kids just put it on. People just do it, and there you go. You know, you give them permission to do it as well.
Yeah, no, the model. I think you nailed it right there. You know, most people want their kids to eat healthy, but they eat like crap.
Right.
You know, or they want their kids to do X and they do Y and Z.
You should exercise, but I'm just gonna eat chips here.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you how from the couch. You know, it's too funny. The final takeaway, I guess, if you were gonna talk to, and I'm gonna show every single one of my people at least. You're talking to 150 people here right now that are in Troy that are kind of stupid. When it comes to your body, guys, you're all brilliant. What are you going to tell them that's going to give them this much that will take them this far?
Yeah, it's a great question. Go outside in the morning. Don't look at your screen. Do not look at your screen, and if you do, make it red. Make it red tone, and you can show them how to do that, right? Make it a red tone screen, but do not get into the habit of waking up and just scrolling first thing. Check the time. Know you have to wake up. Go outside. Drink some water. Heck, even if you want to drink coffee, drink your coffee outside. Eat your breakfast outside. Do something outside first thing in the morning where you're getting that light signaling. Make it a routine.
Yes.
And then at night, block that artificial light, starting as close to sunset as you can. Which in Michigan, you know, for me, I don't know about you, but I'll only have the orange ones on these days for a little bit of time because the sun is setting around 9. Whereas in the middle of winter, when the sun sets at 5:30, I have them on for a significant amount of time.
Feels like all day, actually. You only get sunlight for like from 1 to 3.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
No, yeah. In the summer, it's really nice, and I guess it's not that bad that I don't really watch TV either, but I think a lot of people do, and that's something that I don't think we can change. So the blue light blockers.
Too much resistance at first, for sure. Too much resistance.
Yeah.
And so I just want you wearing blue blockers to start with. And then you'll see, John, I'm sure you've worked with people enough to see, like, those little tweaks handle themselves. People start to recognize, their body starts to, then they become more aware of what their body wants and thrives on. And so they'll naturally start to make those decisions because they're starting to recognize how much better they feel.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm going to have a client be pulling up here in like no time, and I'm sure you have another thing to go.
Dude.
I have 1,000 follow-up questions for you. So I'm probably just going to go onto your Calendly and like
book
pick
another,
one in December, maybe? We can do like a It Sucks, It's Michigan December episode.
Michigan winter is a great one, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's all like the cold thermogenesis that's happening right there, and we could probably touch on that, but I think I hit that well enough. I think what I got from you is really where my clients are like, are you a lunatic?
He's not a lunatic, everyone.
And if I am, I'm in great company, you know.
Likewise,
it's completely okay, you know.
Oh, great.
Carrie from Kalamazoo to Troy, thank you so much. And I will give you a absolute recommendation to everybody if they need more information. Her links are going to be like somewhere around this page. I'll link all of her stuff so you can find her. Carrie, thank you so much. I'm going to try and make my way out to Kalamazoo also. Maybe we can do this next one live.
Fun. That'd be a blast.
That'd be cool.
That'd be really cool.
All right,
Yep.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
John. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care, Carrie.
Bye.